Your competition is not actually the other advertisers, right, in the
Yeah.
industry that you're dealing with, but rather it's all of the content that's put out there. So on one hand, you have advertisers that are increasingly spending money on ads trying to reach consumers, but you also have consumers that are bombarded with content, not just from other advertisers, but also from actually probably the topics they're most interested in. You know, it could be your baby photos, it could be wedding posts, and it could be content creators putting their content out there. For a very long time, obviously, search was synonymous with Google. But today, search means a lot of different things to different people, right? So you have, on one hand, social search, which is people searching on, Instagram and on TikTok, especially the younger audiences. There's the tech stack, and then there's the creative.
Yeah.
The audience, you're keeping it broad, and you really need to trust that the
Yeah.
algorithm is going to find the audience that will convert for you. But it's the creative that you can play around with the most.
Hi, Dana.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Welcome to Below the Fold.
Thank you. I'm flattered to be here.
I'm super excited to do this with you.
Yeah, me too.
We known each other since university.
College, yeah.
Yeah. It's been a while.
I think let's not say how
let's
long.
let's just not say how long. And we have recently worked together as well,
Yes.
right? On marketing, in the
Marketing and
digital
media.
marketing landscape, right?
It was a great
Marketing and media.
experience.
Yeah. And this makes it even more compelling
Yes.
for me to be doing this with you, because I've known your capabilities in this field, and I know that we've bonded over this topic at work.
Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Faded.
And so we are going to cover today digital media trends in 2025, or 2025 trends, right? So we'll cover these trends. We'll make this a two-part episode. Okay, so the first part we'll cover a number of trends, and then the second one, you viewers and listeners can just jump into the next episode to listen to the other trends that we'll cover. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Sure. I'm Dana El Zein. I've been working in the media, tech, and advertising industry for the past 15 years. Spent my entire career in consulting with the world's largest brands, but also very small SMEs and enterprises. And I'm super passionate about media in specific because I feel that media and communication and advertising is all about psychology and all about understanding consumers and how to reach them with your message as a brand, and how to cut through and connect with them. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. On a personal level, I love yoga, but I think that's irrelevant for the podcast.
No, it's okay, of course. But you spoke about psychology and understanding people, and so
Yeah.
I think there's definitely an intersection right there between business and data and science and people,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And yeah, these trends that we've collected and aggregated together, some of them are existing, I guess, touch points and channels that have been there for a while, but they just picked up right this year. And not all of them are new channels or new media or new products. Some are related to performance and cost and things like that. Why don't we kickstart with the first one, right? Which is the rising costs
Of media.
of paid media, right? And what is happening there, right? CPCs and media costs are continuing to rise in 2025. What's your take on that? What do you think that's happening? Is it because a lot of advertisers are jumping on biddable media?
Yeah, look, I think you definitely have increased competition, and with increased competition, obviously comes increasing costs. I think every advertiser is competition, but I also think that marketers in today's world are pivoting more and more to platforms and digital media. And within those spaces, your competition is not actually your the other advertisers, right, in the
Yeah.
industry that you're dealing with, but rather it's all of the content that's put out there. So on one hand, you have advertisers that are increasingly spending money on ads trying to reach consumers, but you also have consumers that are bombarded with content, not just from other advertisers, but also from actually probably the topics they're most interested in. You know, it could be your baby photos, it could be wedding posts, and it could be content creators putting their content out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's that combination that is actually making making this whole space and industry a lot more cluttered.
Yeah.
So for brands, I think it means a couple of different things.
Yeah.
I think for me, at least, like the one thing is for brands, they need to go back to basics and do what marketers have always done. If you think of marketing, it hasn't changed, right? So marketing has always been about reaching consumers with the right message in the right place at the right time. Today, the right place tends to be the mobile device, more or less. So it's always
Yeah.
on. So it's really about reaching consumers with the right message in the right channel.
Yeah. I think for the past like decade, we've moved from the right message to focusing on the right place and time, right? With trying to move to digital. And I think you made a really good point there with maybe we need to take a step back and then relook at the right message. What does the right message mean? Because I was looking at a stat the other day, which said 50% of your performance is on the creative, right? So maybe one of the things that brands could do is to be able to stand out in this clutter is deliver a really good creative.
Absolutely. I think creative is probably the area that brands need to be investing in the most. But I think to get to the right creative, the first thing that brands need to be doing is really understanding their audience and understanding the channels that their audiences are consuming or the channels that their audiences are on. I think what tends to happen with advertisers a lot of the time is they will have a piece of creative and then they will just shoot it out or shoot the same creative across multiple different channels with the hopes that it works. But obviously, every channel has its own nuances and has its own way of sort of connecting with audiences. And actually, like the example I always like to refer back to is when we think of the first TV ad ever. Do you know what the first TV ad was?
No, I'm intrigued now.
So actually, if you want to Google it, it's for Bulova watches.
Yeah.
And it actually was a radio ad on TV. So basically, what they had was a radio VO, and they just had the logo of the brand,
Oh, no
of the
way.
watch
Okay.
brand. So that was the first ever TV ad
Yeah.
that was aired, which is very interesting because obviously times have evolved. Now we're starting to build for digital first, but you still have a lot of brands that are investing into, you know, what we would typically consider TV ads,
Right.
and then just putting them on all of their social media channels. Or they might build, you know, short form content, 15-second ads, things that work better in a digital media space, but they're literally using the same ad across TikTok, Google,
Yeah.
Meta, and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, I fully agree on this point. I do hear a lot about how the social media users want to see the human aspect of a brand, the people behind the brand, which isn't always the case when you look at the content that the brands put out there, which is
Yeah.
highly edited, highly produced. And I think the other thing on CPC and media cost increasing that I wanted to cover really quickly before we move to the next trend is yes, CPCs are increasing, and you absolutely need to work on your creative. And I do think you also need to make sure that if you're going to pay a higher CPC, you want to make sure that it counts. And so you want to make sure that you're tracking the post-click activity
Yes.
and that you're optimizing for it and that you are paying a higher CPC, but you're trying to also decrease your cost per conversion, your cost per ticket sale, etc.
100%. To look beyond the click.
100%. Next trend, and I know you've said that you found this one interesting.
Yes.
The search landscape is fragmenting.
I think this is maybe the most interesting space at the moment. Because for a very long time, obviously, search was synonymous with Google. But today, search means a lot of different things to different people, right? So you have, on one hand, social search, which is people searching on, Instagram and on TikTok, especially the younger audiences. I remember, I mean, we all remember, I think it was 2 years ago, those headlines everywhere that Gen Z or TikTok takes over search for Gen Z. You have now what's becoming more and more prominent, zero-click searches,
Yeah.
which essentially is consumers searching, let's say, on Google, but then through generative AI, you have the results appearing on the search result landing page. So there is no
Click.
post-click
Yeah,
experience.
yeah.
It ends there.
Yeah.
And then I think the largest, one that has seen an uptake in the past year is AI
Yeah.
and searching through AI, which has actually shifted the way we search as humans, right? Because it's become a lot more conversational. It's no longer best restaurants in Madrid. It's what are the best bakeries next to me or next to my hotel in Madrid, let's say.
Yeah.
And I think this influences brands in a very interesting way, and
Yeah.
and there's a lot that they can play on in this
Yeah.
space.
One of the things that I've seen happening with how much people are starting to search on social media is the type of content that creators and businesses are starting to push based on search queries. So because a lot of users are now searching on Instagram about restaurants, for example, instead of Google, because they wanna see visuals of
Yeah.
how the restaurant looks like, or they want to see the dishes, right? They don't want to see the review type photos that are not always,
Yes.
appetizing, I guess. They want to look at the proper pictures on Instagram, and what that what that is doing to I guess restaurants is now they're including in their content like a really long caption with a lot of information in it, so that when people come across this content, because they're searching, they get all the information. And that's also actually helping their content be, being prioritized on social media. Yeah, I think this is an element that's very interesting, that's picked up
Yeah.
over the past I guess year. And you mentioned AI. Um,
Yeah, I think there's that actually is AI in a way, right?
yeah.
Because it's the generative search results is what you're referring to.
Yeah, the generative search results, but also on Instagram. So if you
Oh,
search,
within Instagram.
yeah,
Okay.
so if you go to any a lot of the restaurant pages on Instagram, if you tap on their some of their posts, and you'll notice that the caption is no longer like 3 sentences or one paragraph. It's a really
Got
long
it.
caption with a lot of information about the restaurant.
Ah, okay. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's becoming more useful for the end user to find the information, and it's creating more engagement, and therefore their content is being favored by the algorithm.
That's smart.
Yeah, what do you use for search?
I think it depends. If it's travel related, I use a lot of Instagram
Yeah.
to kind of figure out where I want to go and, how to plan my trip and what looks nice, even like what to wear in a specific destination. I think like a lot of people, I use Claude
Yeah.
personally. It's become my sort of best friend, and I use it for everything.
Yeah.
And then Google I still use, but it definitely is not, I don't use it the same way I used to.
Yeah.
I think my first touch point has become AI
AI. Yeah.
because it's a
So
conversation. It's
yeah.
easier to sort of,
Yeah. So the search landscape is definitely fragmenting, and I
yes.
think also what this means for brands is they need to revisit their SEO strategy to cater for now multiple channels, and I think that's gonna pick up, right? SEO for AI, SEO for Instagram, obviously for TikTok, etc.
And using conversational keywords. So I think they need to rethink that entire keyword strategy
Right. What
from
do you mean
Google.
by that? Can you give me an example?
Again, like I think it's more before, let's say you would be looking at, let's say best local bakeries.
Right.
The way you search now today, it's even if it's, by the way, even voice, right?
Yeah.
You use Siri, tell me what are the best local bakeries in town. So the keywords and the way you're structuring your sentences are much more
Conversational.
human. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
exactly like this. It's a
Gotcha.
conversation rather than
Yeah.
a input.
Interesting. Next trend.
Next trend.
AI powered campaign optimization is revolutionizing paid media. So some would say AI in paid media and biddable media is nothing new, right? It's been there forever. Like the engine that empowers, I guess, the platforms is an algorithm. It's an AI type technology.
Yes.
But we are seeing today more reliance on machine learning with the emergence of uh, ad tech such as Performance Max, Advantage Plus with Meta. I think I've heard Amazon ads launch something called Brand Plus. Um,
And TikTok Smart Plus.
TikTok Smart Plus.
Yeah.
I wonder who came first. Yeah, what do you think? Do you think that's a step forward, or is it a step backward because there's going to be less control from advertisers with their campaigns?
On the contrary, I absolutely think it's a step forward. And I think it's a massive opportunity for marketeers to stop focusing so much on the manual operations and really spend their time on insights, on analytics, on feeding that back into the business. I think when it comes to marketing, but it does basically, I think it requires a lot of trust
Hmm.
because you need to get the inputs right
Yeah.
in order for this to work effectively for you. And the inputs are everything from the tech stack and the tech setup, especially if
Hmm.
it's performance based marketing, all the way through. Actually, there's the tech stack and then there's the creative.
Yeah.
The audience, you're keeping it broad and you really need to trust that the
Yeah.
algorithm is going to find the audience that will convert for you. But it's the creative that you can play around with the most.
Yeah.
And I think that's where advertisers need to still build. So build their creatives or design their creatives, assuming they have different audiences,
Yeah.
but then trust that
Yeah.
whatever runs or whatever delivers the best performance for them is actually, the winning creative. And I
Yeah.
think that's the tricky part.
That's a really good point. I heard in on multiple occasions that your creative is your targeting.
Yes,
So your creative is your targeting because people who engage with your creative is the audience that is going to see your ad over and over again. And also another thing, it's the bidding. So your bidding is also a form of targeting. If you're bidding for traffic, for clicks, the system is going to be showing your ad to people who are likely to click.
true.
If your bidding is something else, if it's a sale, for example, the system is going to look for people in market to make a purchase. Let's move to the next one. The next one is first party data is becoming critical,
Remains critical.
remains critical.
I think it always was critical, right? Knowing your audience
Yeah,
and having a database just
right. So there's knowing your audience, but it's also targeting your audience, right?
true.
Um,
Leveraging them.
there's obviously a privacy compliance like aspect that you need to, I guess, account for, right? When you deal with first party. I know that some brands take it very seriously,
Yes.
and it's also very limiting in many cases, right? Um, what do you think would be like certain key takeaways from first party continuing to be very important in advertising?
I think first party data can actually augment existing sort of advertising solutions that people might be using.
Yeah.
There's Google's enhanced conversions. I think that was one of them where
Yeah.
using the first party data actually helps it better identify the people that will
Yeah.
convert based on your existing audience.
Right.
I think first party data is also extremely powerful when it comes to cost saving. So for example, if you're a brand and there's two sort of components to this, but the one on one hand is if you're a brand and you want to reach only your database, then there is no point in spending dollars and money reaching an entire, market or
Yeah.
segment. It's actually more effective probably to just reach your audience. So that's on one hand. And the reverse is true. So let's say you're a brand and you're looking to acquire new customers, then and you have like a specific offer for those new customers, then there's no point targeting your existing customers, right? So
Hmm.
I think first party data will always remain a gold mine for advertisers, but it's really about how you analyze that data and how you understand the consumer and what you use it for,
Yeah.
that will ultimately make it valuable for brands or not. But brands that use first party data have seen, I mean, these are just stats that I've read online, but I believe it's true because there's plenty of case studies to
Yeah.
support it, that they've seen, over 8x return on investment from leveraging first party data in their advertising.
Right. It might be costlier to activate first party data versus a broader audience, but there's definitely a good leap in performance when you do so. Next trend. And I think this one's been trending for a while now. Short form video is dominating
Yes.
digital engagement, right? TikTok, Instagram Reels continue to rise.
Short form video is still king. It will always be king.
Yeah.
Uh, it's funny. I think this trend, it's because I've been in this space and industry for a while now, to someone like me and you, probably, it feels like we're just repeating the same trend year on year, and it's the same sort of best practices. Focus on short form,
Yeah.
capture attention in the first 3 seconds, make sure your logo's there. But I actually think for the majority of market, I think the reason it's still there is, unfortunately, as a marketing industry, it hasn't yet become the norm.
Yeah.
It still is either an adaptation
Mm.
or a one size fits all, like I'll make this 15-second ad and then release it across multiple platforms.
Yeah.
Which is where I think it's important that advertisers sort of start to really invest in creative
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
building the right creative for the right channel. And also, to your point earlier at the start, on more authentic creative. So it doesn't have to be, this high production, $900,000 TV shoot.
Yeah.
It can actually be something that is shot with your mobile phone on the spot, spontaneously, based on, culture, what's happening at the moment
Yeah.
and in real time.
And I do think also um, it is dominating from a digital engagement standpoint because man, I feel like the algorithms are just getting better at serving us short content.
Yeah.
Don't you think so? Like this past year, I feel like I'm spending more time on
And more money.
doom scrolling and,
Yes.
and more money, right?
True.
It's getting better, and so I'm spending more time over there. Um, we've just reached the end of part one, so we'll take a small break, and you can catch us in the next episode.